Alright, welcome back. Got a quicker lab task for you today. It's going to be jumpstart a vehicle. Okay, and we're going to go over the proper way to jumpstart a vehicle and use the booster packs. Normally when we think jumpstarting a vehicle, we got two vehicles and we're connecting them with jumper cables. But given today's technology, and even this guy's kind of big, we got booster packs that do a good job of jump starting a vehicle for us without necessarily needing a second vehicle. We'll talk about the second vehicle thing near the end of the lab. But for our lab task, we're going to use this booster pack as our second good vehicle for jump starting. And we're going to focus on identifying good grounds and knowing how to make and break connections to the battery when setting up for jump starting. So to get started, we would have a work order filled out. We're going to look up service information for the vehicle that we're going to jump start to verify that it is a vehicle that can be jump started. This 1998 Ford Taurus definitely can be jump started, and it's pretty straightforward. However, on some vehicles things are a little bit different. Some vehicles, the battery might be in the trunk or underneath the back seat or inside of a fender and a little bit more difficult to get to. So we'd have to look around for some battery posts or some connections provided, and or especially some of our newer vehicles are not designed to be jump started anymore and may not be able to, so we need to verify that before we get started. Okay, this one's good to go. So the first thing we're going to do is hook up our red positive clamp to the positive battery and the negative clamp to a good engine ground. So I'm going to lay my booster pack down someplace where I'm pretty sure I'm not going to damage the vehicle or create any problems or pinch anything. And I'm going to take my red lead here and I'm going to look on the battery and identify the positive terminal of the battery with my booster pack off. And I'm going to clamp on there, make sure I get a good clamp, give it a bit of a wiggle. Just want to point out that this is not actually the battery for this vehicle. This is our shop car, and it happens to be a good used battery that works, and we're making use of it. And you can see we have these quick release clamps because it's a shop vehicle. The battery's in and out of here all the time, and oftentimes these quick release battery terminal connectors, these need a fair amount of care, and they got to come apart and be cleaned and reconnected frequently to maintain good connections. So if you're wondering why those are there, it's because it's a shop vehicle and batteries come out for storage purposes, and so we've made that easier. Alright, so I've got my red positive connected. Normally when we go to hook up to the dead battery in a vehicle, if we're connecting a good battery to it, we're expecting some sparks to happen because we're connecting a good battery to a dead battery, and there's going to be a sudden flow of electricity. If we have a dead battery and it was recently heavily discharged, we don't want the sparks occurring near the battery. We want to keep those sparks as far from the battery as we can. So we're going to go for a good engine ground. And so I'm going to take my black clamp here, and we want a good engine ground. Now, what does a good engine ground look like? Well, a good engine ground is going to be something that's metal and that's bolted to the engine. I suppose we could also do a frame ground, but those are getting harder and harder to come by. If we take a look, the intake manifold right here, this is aluminum, and the bolts that hold it down to the top of the engine are steel, and so that's metallic, it's bare, and it's attached to the top of the engine, so that would be a good engine ground. So I can clip right here on this lug, right around the bolt. Aluminum is a very good conductor of electricity, and that should work. What is not a good ground is this tube right here. It looks like it'd be really easy. Just put your clamp right here onto this coolant bypass tube, but this side is rubber and that side is rubber, and rubber is non-conductive, so that's not a good engine ground. If we were looking at frame grounds, you might want to just clip it. Let me adjust this so you can see a little bit more. You might say, hey, I can clip it right here, okay? Except for on this vehicle, this is actually a fiberglass reinforced plastic panel, and it's not conductive. Painted surfaces, not really conductive unless your clamp scratches through them, but if you scratch through them with your clamp, you're probably going to have some customer relations issues to deal with. And so we don't want anything plastic, we don't want anything painted. We could try this rusty exhaust manifold down here. However, rust isn't very good at conducting electricity too, so that'd be kind of a toss-up as to how well your clamps can bite through the rust. So in your lab sheet, you're going to need to point out an alternative engine ground. So I showed you this one here. Another good one would be like this alternator bracket that's made up of bare aluminum. It's bolted to the engine block, so we could maybe use it here. Okay. You just got to watch out for the spinning, moving pulleys and part of the belt system there to make sure that your cable or your clamp don't get caught up in moving parts. And so once you've got a satisfactory ground and you've got an instructor checkpoint and you've been given the okay, we can see here our booster pack's already indicating our current voltage is 12.4 volts. That's because we're dealing with already good battery. We'll turn it to 12 volts and then we'll crank the engine over. All right, so now that we've had a successful crank and start, okay, it's time to turn the booster pack off, and we're going to undo our connections. And whenever we're undoing a connection from a vehicle, we're going to start with the ground first, and so we'll remove the negative. We'll wrap this one up. And then the positive. Okay. Set this back down, and then I'll go over, and we'll have to make sure that we put that back in its proper storage spot, and then plug it in so that it can be recharged and ready for the next time. All right, so once we're done with that, then the last part will be to finish filling out the lab sheet, and then if we're doing this in person and on paper, your last task is to draw in the connections that would be made and how you would make them and number them in order that you would make the connections if we were doing two vehicles. And then you would turn it into the inbox, or if we're doing this virtually, you're going to use drawing tools to draw in the cables in red and black and then number the connections in the order in which you make them and then submit that to the hand-in button. All right. That'll do it for the Jump Start Lab. Nice, quick, and easy one. Any questions? Send me an email or reach out to me during class. And thanks for watching.